Here we are once again back in Triple R Studios, Ray's record room, and the great man is right beside me. How are you, Ray?
How's that? Fantastic.
How's that?
Thank you, Hoodoo. I'm just really happy, man. I'm a happy bass player. I'm going to be very happy after this little call. But
a happy bass player.
I'm a very happy bass player. I always smile.
I thought they were always
that's a nice fucking change.
Bitter, resentful, nasty people.
No. It's all good, mate. You'll see.
You'll have to get your 74p bass out later, Ray.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, all right.
No
Anyway,
worries.
down the far end, Mike Big Roy Whitney, as always. And I'm Andrew Dawsey Dawson. And
Dawsey.
Thank you, mate. As I always do, I'll throw it down to Big Roy down the end for the intro for this bloke. And, what do you say about this guy? It's over to you.
Oh, dear.
I'm about to embarrass him. Because he has very little ego. I've known him for a little while now, but he is Australian music royalty. And I'm going to start with the first band, Matt Finish, and then the next band, the Divinyls, and then the next band, which is still gigging with now, Hoodoo Gurus. Just that alone is unbelievable, but I'm going to throw this in early to really embarrass you. Twice inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame. I don't know how many people have done that. And then the rest...
Talk about being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, that's right. It's all luck.
And then the rest of your life journey, and you've told that story many times, is quite incredible to where you are right now sitting with us in Ray's record room. It's a pretty amazing story. So let me introduce to you Rick Grossman!
How's that?
Well, there it is.
Now, for those of you who are uninitiated out there in the music world, Rick is a bass player and Sugar Ray Nosty's a bass player, so I'm sure there's going to be plenty of bass talk. You mentioned a P76 or
1974p bass.
Yeah, that's a car. P76 was a car. That's right. A 1974p bass.
Yeah, Fender Precision.
Yes.
Is that what you play now?
I do.
Did you?
I still have the first bass I bought. Well, one of the first bass I bought in 76.
Was that new then? Did you buy?
No, it was 10 years old.
Oh,
and there was no such thing as a vintage guitar then.
That's right, eh?
And now
so that's a 65 bass, and do you play that one still?
Yeah. Yep. I've got a couple of those. Yep.
Beautiful.
Almost as valuable as my children.
Wow. How many basses have you got?
I've got about. I think I've got 10.
Oh, because
I've collected.
They were given to him.
No. Everyone thinks they get given.
How many basses have you got, right?
5 or 6.
Well, there you go. Were they given
But
to you?
you got some acoustic
Oh, they
basses.
were.
Yeah.
Can I get
I
your
just
number?
play in bands and they just say, Ray,
Really?
can you play this bass? Because
Before we start this,
I've been waiting for that for 45 years.
I want to tell you the bass story that I had with Ray. When I turned up at Ray's place in the mid-70s to have this band that we got together, what were you playing then? That was a Fender Precision bass.
Yeah.
And it was a really cool bass. Then 18 years later, which was a long time after that, we said, let's get the band together. I said, have you still got that bass you used to play in the garage? He went, yeah. I said, well, that's the only bass that you're going to play while I play. Mind you bought a Fender Jazz bass, which is a greenish sort of, and that's a beautiful bass. And I've allowed him to play that one a couple of times on stage.
That sounds good. I'd like to see that.
I can hear that really well, that jazz bass. It's amazing. But to see those, that's like me having an old cricket bat that Bradman used, and they're just works of art, aren't they? And do you reckon they get better?
Well, yeah, I think so. I don't know. I mean, you can find an old bass. Everyone says, I've got to get an old bass, but they can be crappy, some of them, But I don't know. They're I look at my guitars and I still get that same feeling I have when I was 14, standing outside the music store in Park Street, Harry Landis.
Harry
and I'd be getting the bus home from school, and I'd stand outside that shop. And it was porn. It was
just
porn
stare
for
into
me,
the shop
yeah.
window.
Oh, it's weird, mate. When I was 14, most boys were looking at Playboy or Penthouse. I was looking at bass guitars.
Having your first Uncle Doug. With Playboy.
Ray's still doing both now.
I'm still doing it.
Okay, I want to start at the start. Where did you grow up? What suburb did you grow up?
I grew up in mainly in Paddington, eastern suburbs.
And that was your family had come from there, your mum and dad or your grandparents?
My family came here from England in the 50s. And what they did was back then there were big houses around in the eastern suburbs. A lot of them have been pulled down now. And
was that the £10 POM thing back then?
Yeah, they were.
It was,
yeah.
okay.
Actually, it's quite an interesting thing that happened to them. They had a friend who had come to Australia in 1953 on a business trip and came home and invited my parents over for dinner. And that night there was this phenomenon that happened in London called the London fog, which was a natural phenomenon. And Winston Churchill was warned about this, that one day the mist and it would all combine and the pollution would be held down, and hundreds of people died over these
so
few days.
So it really happened?
Yeah.
Wow.
And my parents were having dinner, and that night our family friend had come back from here and it said, I've been to this place and there are beaches and you can buy fresh vegetables and you can get food.
No
food.
mist in Sydney.
and
is that Fog on the Tyne, is it?
No. It was just, if you look up the London fog, yeah. And Winston Churchill was warned about this.
You know what, Rick? I have a mate whose nickname is the London Fog. And when I asked why they called him that, they said, he won't lift. He wouldn't lift anything.
That's right.
Won't lift, the London fog.
Well, my mother that night, when they drove home, she had to walk in front of the car because you could not see where you were going. Wow. And they got home and they just went, we're going. So they came here. And they came here in the 50s. And my mother was someone who loved theatre and opera and music and art, and there was nothing in the 50s here. She said it was just a wasteland.
Basic.
But it was just fabulous, the beaches and the lifestyle.
So children in your family, were any born then already?
No.
So
I was born here, my sister was born here.
Right.
Yeah.
And did your parents obviously still had English accents and stuff like that?
My mother passed away last year, and she still had an English accent. She still had she was in London during the war, and she still had that mentality, of you save every bit of food, so she'd never throw anything out.
Yeah. The old bubble and squeak after a roast.
And she was... they came here and what used to happen is there were houses that my parents weren't really wealthy.
What did he do for a crust, your dad?
He was a real estate agent.
Okay.
And
my mother ended up in a fucking big house.
No, well we didn't. We did, but we rented. What they used to do is there was massive houses then, and a couple would own it, and then someone would die. The man or the woman would die. And so they would quite often seal off the top into a little unit and rent out the house. Oh. So we lived in 4 houses like that when I was growing up. They were nice houses, but the owner lived upstairs.
Yeah.
And my mother worked for...
Nick Politis?
No, she did not work for Nick Politis.
He would have been around. He would have been about 50 then. Sorry.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, she worked for the conservatorium. She was a concert organizer, and she had about 4 careers. And she met my stepfather in the 70s. They're incredible. My mother was sort of like eastern suburbs, and we moved to Paddington in 1970, which was amazing.
Interesting time in the 70s, because it was just starting to turn over. Young people were moving in, doing the terraces up, weren't they?
And we'd come from Rose Bay, which was, pretty straight conservative. We moved into Paddington, into this cul-de-sac. It was all gay men.
Yeah.
In the street.
Yeah. Even back then.
Yes.
It was wonderful.
Right? It was. My grandmother was
wonderful. It was so good. It was so good.
And my mum's an old Paddington girl. And yes, that was unbelievable time.
Is that because there's no children around, or?
Well, there seemed to be a constant party going on. We had people there was a guy who lived across the road was called Louis the Lash.
And there was a name. I'm going to look that up. Louis the Lash.
Louis the Lash.
That would have been an amazing
Louis the Lash always used to have a neck brace on, or he had his arm in a sling, because he was a masochist, and he'd go down to Bondi and put it on one of the surfy guys, and they'd beat him up. So, but it was a great place to grow up, and And there were some guys who lived across the road, and one of them really, we just became friends with him. He was quite a bit old. He was an English guy, and he taught at an alternate school in Paddington, and they gave us the space. So I just started going up there with a couple of mates, and we just started playing, and that's how I started playing.
Was your mother the original inspiration?
Yeah,
because
she
of
was
the conservative.
Did
she play piano or anything like that? Or no,
none of my family played instruments. My dad loved the Beatles, and and there was always music in our house, but there was like musicals. I don't like musicals.
I
myself.
love musicals.
I can't. You should meet our lead singer then. He's a fanatic. But he's writing a musical, actually. Do you remember a film? It was a book called They're a Weird Mob.
Yeah.
Dave Faulkner. Dave actually got the rights to that.
To write a musical.
And he's writing a musical that They're a Weird Mob.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing. But he's been doing that for about 40 years, I think, now. Writing it.
Wrong project.
Yeah,
he'll get it. No, he's played me a few songs that he's written for it. They're really great. But I've sidetracked myself.
So
now,
on the music side of things, you saw Led Zeppelin in 1972. Is that inspiration as well?
How old were you then in 72?
You must have been
14.
Yeah, wow. So you're a 58er, are you?
56.
56.
So I'm giving myself a couple of.
You're 3 years older than me, bro.
Right.
So you're 68 and I'm 65. I know it's hard to get it out. You go like this.
We're having our 40th,
incredible, mate.
This year, the first Hoodoo Gurus album is being re-released because it's the 40 year.
Wow.
We're having these 40-year reunions for the cricket, and we're going 40. 40,
unbelievable.
So tell us about. Was it school that actually got you into playing?
Well, I played violin. I hated violin. I absolutely hated it.
Did they make you?
Yeah, they made me do it. And I used to go to the conservatorium, and I used to hate it. But, it's an interesting thing. I was talking to someone. We were actually doing a kind of an interview, and they asked me, why do you play music? It's an interesting thing. I mean, why did you play cricket?
The girls?
That's...
The drugs?
Absolutely.
The money?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't the money.
Wasn't a lot of money in cricket.
You're
100% right. Yeah. Though I remember I was playing.
That's why, is it?
Yeah, I was playing cello and violin, and
I hated the music.
Yeah, I didn't hate the music. Sometimes,
JPY.
Yeah, but I remember going to school. I changed schools, went to Sydney High, and
where were you going?
I was
Paddington,
at Scott's.
Oh yeah, Scott's College. Yeah.
Yeah. And my family, my parents split up, and I could no longer. They couldn't afford to go to Scott's, so I went to Sydney High.
Yeah.
And everyone had hair down to here.
Yeah.
Everyone had moratorium badges.
Yeah.
And it was like a magnet.
Hey, this is like early 70s, right?
Oh, this is 1970. Yeah. 1970. And I went into the class, and there's this kid sitting there. I started talking to him. He was a guitarist. And I just started playing guitar, like acoustic, and I'd borrowed a bass off someone because I thought it looked great. And there were all these kids picking up guitars, and I can't actually remember. I think it was just like the only thing that was available was a bass guitar. And so I started sort of messing around on that, and he said, we should form a band. You meet a lot of girls. Alrighty,
that's always the hook.
And most people, 90% of people I know, that's their motivation. Yeah, but if that's your only motivation, you don't do it very long. But it
was then. It's not now.
Yeah,
So you just do it.
But I became. Yeah, that's right. I became completely obsessed with it. Completely.
So when you got home, you were playing at night and just trying to learn as much as you could about scales.
Yeah, I didn't. Not so much technically. I just. I can't really explain it.
You could do it. You could pick it up.
I picked it up really fast. Yeah. Really fast.
And
I found I could do it really fast. And I would get on trains and buses and go for miles and try and find people to have a jam with and look up in the paper. But this kid I met, Chris, I used to go to his place, and there was a guy there. His name's Deniz Tech, and he formed a band called Radio Birdman.
That's it. Yeah.
Legends.
And Deniz,
I've still got that album. Yeah. Radio's Alive.
Radio's Appear.
Radio's Appear. That's
so
it.
Deniz was he's probably he was a huge influence on the Australian music industry.
He was American. Was it
American? Yeah. He's a doctor.
Really?
He's also a jet pilot. I mean, he's American. I mean, unbelievable.
What more can you do?
I mean, yeah. And he's sickeningly good looking too. I mean,
the girls again.
Yeah. But he inspired us a lot and introduced us to a lot of...
Was that his real name? Sorry.
Yeah, T-E-K, yeah.
No, come on. No one has a name.
Yeah, Deniz. Okay. D-E-N-I-Z.
That's right. It was too, wasn't it? I remember that.
And when they started, I was in this band called Slow Motion. It was a dreadful band. And we... entered the Hoadley Battle of the Bands.
Oh, legend.
That was my favourite thing.
Legend.
Especially when Finch...
Legendary.
When Finch won it, it was just unbelievable.
That's right. So Finch won it, I think, maybe the year before this, but Radio Birdman won it the year we were just dreadful. But, I just loved them. I loved them. I'd go travel. We used to travel to Wollongong, Newcastle. I became kind of... I knew Deniz from...
How big were they at their biggest? Or they had a bit of an underground following?
Underground following.
Yeah.
Completely independent.
Yeah.
No radio play, no major record company.
It was like that, wasn't it? I wasn't really into it, but I remember this Johnny Canis.
Yeah.
He loved them. He absolutely was obsessed with them.
He was
wasn't
their backing singer.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah.
But he formed the Hitman, was it because he wanted to be like...
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, he's another story, that guy.
You're across this, right?
I know, listen to the boys just chewing the fat doors.
We supported the Hitmen a few times with the old Sydney Cove Tavern and all those venues. Yeah.
I can tell you, as soon as you say Sydney Cove Tavern, I think of this.
Tell us,
this
please.
Little story.
Thank you. Thank you.
I went down there to see Chisel one night, and we'd all started together, so we all knew one another, and their sound guy Jerry ended up doing the sound for the Divinyls. This was when I was in Matt Finish, so I go to see Sydney Cove Tavern, to see Chisel, and they finished, and Jerry goes, "Come on, we'll go backstage," and we get to the dressing room door, and he opens the door, and Jimmy's got Steve Presswich up against the wall.
So those stories are true.
He said, "Let's just leave them alone for a while."
We've got a list of bands.
Can I just...
Yeah.
But he could handle himself, couldn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They they were... Look, there's always a relationship between a singer and a drummer in a band.
You know the singers, man.
Well, the singer gets insecure and starts doing this, faster. Everything's got to be faster.
Yeah.
It happens in every band. Every band I've been in.
We've got a list. Hellcats, Parachute, Bleeding Hearts, Eric Grammon's Man and Machine, The Traders.
Yeah.
You played in all of those.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, we've done our research.
But
they were all prior Matt Finish.
Yeah, they were in Melbourne. I lived for 3 years in Melbourne.
Yeah,
and I started playing properly and professionally in Melbourne, and it was a complete accident. I went down to visit a family friend in 1976, and we'd formed this band. We were going to call it the Hellcats.
Yeah,
we couldn't find a drummer, and I don't know. I went down there, and she rang me and she said, "Look, there's this band down here called the Bleeding Hearts. You should bring your bass." So I took my bass down there, and they were in kind of inner city Melbourne band. There was a scene in Melbourne, that was the Skyhooks came out of, and all these Jojo Zepp and
great
the
music,
Sports and all of them. They came out, and they were all older than me, these guys, and.
How did you get down there? No, how did you get down there?
What do you mean?
To Melbourne? Did you fly there?
Did you
drive?
I walked with my bass.
Did you drive there?
And I had a Marshall amp on my back.
No, come on, man. I'm the one with the lines.
I flew.
Did you? Yeah.
I was working.
That's
I had a job.
really weird question, Ray.
I've never been asked that question.
No.
That's a really
I was just thinking.
Question, Ray.
Thinking. How old were you? Were you
20.
Pretty young?
20, yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty young.
How did you get to Melbourne? I fucking rode a
My
fucking
mum
push
would have to
bike.
go everywhere with me when I was 20. I couldn't do anything.
I fucking bought an old post office fucking motorcycle,
Really?
and I fucking rode it to Melbourne with my bass on the back.
I couldn't do anything by myself.
Well,
Yeah, but you're fucking Italian.
but the thing is,
That's why.
it's
Your mother
interesting
used
though,
to,
what
when
you
we
say.
were out in his
No,
shed,
we're
his
gonna
mother
get a
would
story
open
out
the
of this.
door.
We're going to get a story.
His
out of
mother
this.
would say, "What did that smell?"
Yeah.
And we'd be in there on the herb, and then she'd cross herself, and then walk back inside, and then bring out all this fucking
I'll just
food
say,
for us.
I've been
because
farting,
we've
mate.
been smoking, and we were going to be hungry. Oh, Raymond!
My bedroom in Paddington, I remember my stepfather sort of opening the door, and there'd be like
A cloud.
I had a room that was like this in here. It was like a long, thin room, and it was full of people and full of smoke. And he'd be, "Are you in there?"
Yeah, somewhere.
I've seen the Buffalo records. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's got everything, mate. Unbelievable.
But going back to, and the reason I asked, so they've asked you to come down to Melbourne.
Yeah.
And bring your bass.
What you just
Did
said.
they put you up? Like
No. Oh well, they helped. Yeah, I knew one person in Melbourne.
That's what I'm saying.
And I went and had a play with them.
Yeah.
And they said, "We're playing 6 nights a week, all original stuff. Do you want to do it?" And I had to decide on the spot, and it was one of those moments in your life where you just go, I knew this was a moment.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So I did, and it, like the practical side of it was just ridiculous. I mean, I had nothing.
Exactly.
Nothing. And
So
so
you
they
just
put
had
me
a
up.
bass guitar and some
Yeah.
clothes.
Yeah. So I ended up in this house that was I remember it had you could sit in the bath upstairs and talk to the people downstairs. It had a huge hole in the and I had nothing. And but we were playing 6 nights a week, and they were all older than me. And there was a guy in the band called Martin Armiger who Martin went on to be in the sports, but Martin was he wrote a lot of great soundtracks, and he was a real mentor to me. And he was like this Keith Richards type guy, you know, he's very charismatic, great songwriter. And I just used to follow him around, you know, just pestering him.
What sort of money would you have been getting?
$50 a week.
For 6 nights a week?
$50 a week.
So you say you played 6 nights a week and you got less than $10 a night?
Well, yeah. I've never. So I remember
professional cricketer.
No,
in this.
what we used to get because we'd get a worksheet, and it'd be like $200 a gig. You'd get the band.
Yeah,
That's right.
I'm sure the management did,
Or the agency. I remember
but
Harbour.
I didn't even think about it. I've got to say, I just.
Yeah.
But. Well, I did think about it because I started stealing milk money, people's milk money, and I used
done that. I've done that when I was younger.
We used to make Deb mashed potato.
Oh, yeah,
Love
the
and
famous
baked beans.
mashed potatoes, my favourite.
Yeah.
They won't.
It was
So
an
fill you
easy
up,
go-to, wasn't it? That's right.
And we just played, and a great moment for me. Like when I was when I first left, when I was at school, I used to go out and see as many bands as I could, and all the Skyhooks, Sherbet, but bands like Aerial, Piranha, Buffalo,
Flake,
Taste.
Buffalo played at our school, South Sydney Boys High, 3 or 4 times. It was ginormous. Could not get into the hall.
Yeah. Tam and Shard.
Carver's Jude.
Tam and Shard.
Carver's Jude used to live. Who was it? Pierre? Was it Pierre? Was it? I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah,
Used to live at North
that's
Ryde.
right. Yeah. In Tam and Shade,
Yeah.
And there was
What about the music they created? How out there?
Well,
was
it's
that?
stoner rock. It's stoner rock.
Unbelievable.
Just
Full-on
perfect
stoner
for
rock.
someone like me.
My brother-in-law still has a couple of their albums.
Yeah,
and I just
Evolution.
pull the album out and look at it and put it back in.
But I loved it. I'd go out and see all these bands, and Aerial and Daddy Cool. I'd sneak into pubs, and
There was so many venues back in those days, wasn't
there
there?
were. I mean, it was before there were. It was before the pub scene,
And it really exploded in the mid-70s.
That's right.
Back in
Because
the
they used to have the Horden Pavilion. You could see 10 bands.
That's right. That's
All
right.
I saw
remember
everybody.
when Split Ends came out.
That's right.
They were really woo.
Yeah,
And
I
we
saw
went
everyone.
to a number of those, didn't we?
Yep.
Yeah.
But there was always someone. Every week there was someone playing the Horden overseas.
Lobby
act,
Lloyd. Just, we could go on forever.
Yeah.
And Thorpe, I saw Thorpe many times. And then when I got asked to join this band, we were doing 3 brackets a night, 3 sets. So I had to learn it was all original material.
Oh.
So I had to learn all these songs. So after about a week, I'd learnt the songs, and we did a gig in the city.
I don't know how the fuck you blokes do that. Go, here's 30 songs. Here's 30 songs that you don't know. Go and learn the bass parts from.
Oh, but they're all blues based, weren't they? You know, 145.
Oh, not really. No, they weren't. Some of them were, but no, they weren't. In fact, some of them were like prog rock.
Oh, okay.
You know, the Bleeding Heart stuff. They had this R&B side to it, but one of the guys, a guy called Rick Grossman, who was also I played in another band with, he was like I don't know, he liked
yes,
yeah.
How did you know that?
Okay. No, but I know it's prog rock,
that kind of
progressive,
but more sort of weirder stuff.
Tangerine Dream,
Kansas.
Zappa.
Oh, I love Zappa.
Captain Beefheart.
Captain Beefheart.
Weird.
Yeah, so I had to learn that stuff, and then after a week, we did a gig in the city, in Richmond. It was a place called the Tiger Room, and after the gig, I'm in the dressing room.
In Richmond, the Tiger Room.
Get it? The Richmond Tigers.
Yeah. That's right. I love it. Yeah.
And I'm in the dressing room, and they're all in the dressing room. Ross Wilson, all of Skyhooks, Mike Rudd from Ariel, and they're all coming over. I'm this kid, right? And they're all coming over and shaking my hand, going, "Oh, good on you, you know, new bass player." Blah, blah, blah. I mean,
and you're shitting yourself.
it was a great moment.
Yeah.
A great moment for me.
Was that an inspiring moment for you?
Incredible moment.
Yeah.
Incredible, you know. And
It's like a brotherhood, isn't it? Sorry, Widow.
It is. No, I get that with the cricket.
Yeah.
The musos got to be the same.
People say, why do you play in a band? I said, I want to be part of a gang.
Of course you do.
Because, you know, as you know, there's different types of musicians. There's session guys, and I'm not a session guy. See,
Sure.
I'm not. I played with many people. I've only ever done. I better be careful what I say here.
This is what we've been waiting for.
I've only ever done one thing in my life, just for money. Just for money. I mean, I've been lucky that I can make a living out of it, but just for money. And that was Shannon Noll.
Yeah.
Lovely bloke, Shannon. And it's the only time I've ever been fired.
Our guitarist used to play with Shannon Noll, and he got fired.
We should have had him here today.
Yeah.
Should have. I mean, Shannon, I had no problem. Shannon was a lovely bloke, but it was his management and all the people around him.
That's what happened, yeah.
And, you know, he was a guy, he was out of his depth, you know. He was being compared to Jimmy Barnes and James Rain and all of that, and he wasn't, you know. I mean, he's a good singer.
Done good. Yeah. Done good, had a couple of hits.
And, you know, he sort of bought into a lot of the lifestyle, and, I mean, why wouldn't you, you know?
I think he's on a farm now, isn't he, or something? He's born
It's up at Grafton somewhere.
Well, he lived he's from Condobolin.
Yeah.
And they
his
were
brothers
lovely.
play as well, don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah,
Yeah,
they were
good brothers.
they were great. They were lovely family. You know, great.
Gavin used to drum for the Noll brothers.
I played one gig
Did
with
you
him.
know that?
Gavin Roberts.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Gavin
Yeah, that's right. He
a lot.
did. Yeah.
I did one gig with him at a charity gig, and it was great.
Shiny, his brother.
Yeah.
He's a top bloke.
Apparently, they go pretty hard too.
Yes, well, I've got to say, and I hope Shannon, if he hears this, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but we played in
He won't
a gig
mind.
in Brisbane.
No.
And I've come downstairs. I don't drink, right? So I'm on the outer straight away. I mean, I probably why I got fired. But I remember coming downstairs to leave, and Shannon comes down, and his brother. I'm just having a mental block.
His two brothers.
His drummer.
Yeah.
So he comes down, and he's got his arms in a sling, and they've got really out of it in the room. And then they started rolling around, you know, fighting, and then
Wrestling,
it got serious,
yeah.
and then he's thrown a punch at Shannon, and it's hit the wall and broken his hand. He's the drummer. Yeah, they're pretty.
But he kept going. But he drummed.
No, we
didn't
had to get someone else.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wuss.
it's pretty funny. So it was anyway.
I want to get to Matt Finish.
Yeah.
Because Matt Moffitt, to me, I don't know. When I heard the first Matt Finish album, something clicked in my head. I just loved the music. I loved his voice. I loved his songwriting. That band was amazing. How did that start? And then Matt Moffitt died, didn't he? Which
he did.
I'd like to ask you about that as well.
Yeah.
So was the
big
genesis of playing with them coming from the stuff you'd done in Melbourne?
So it was a funny thing that happened. I lived in Melbourne for 3 years and become very friendly with Rob Hirst.
Yep. One of the best.
Yeah.
Wow.
He is.
What a pleasure watching him play.
He's like my closest mate.
Oh, man.
And Rob...
do you remember, I don't know whether he still does it, but the early days used to see the Oils, particularly at Selena's or the Maroubra Seals Club. Last 4 or 5 songs, he'd start pouring water on the drums. Yeah. And they got the light right behind him. Oh, and this...
So they used to pour the water on.
It was so dramatic, man. It was so dramatic. The first time I saw it, we're going like this. Fuck me dead, they're pouring water on his drums. What's going on here? Then he's just gone berserk, and it's just the light just lit up. And Garrett's out the front.
So we used to play with them a lot in bands, even when Eric Grablin's band. I can't remember, it was maybe Matt Finish, and we knew their crew. And I used to, because I was so good friends with Rob, I used to sit, I go anywhere at an oil
ski. Is he a Melbourne boy, Rob?
No.
Okay. And
one night, the water, I remember they said, we're going to grab this, and they gave me a bowl, and I had to pour rice bubbles on his kit. So when he did that thing, it was, instead of water...
It was rice bubbles.
Yeah. I can't remember their stage.
You actually got asked to play with them, didn't you?
So when I was in Melbourne, Rob and I became really good mates, and I remember I really missed Sydney. I loved Melbourne. I lived in a house with Paul Kelly, and I mean, it was great.
Name dropper.
Yeah.
What a cool dude.
I like dropping his name. He was, and in fact, I'll drop another name here. He wrote that song. Looking over the MCG. What's the song?
Yeah, I can't remember the name either.
I'll remember in a minute. But Paul moved into our house. I lived in this house in 1978 with these guys from Adelaide. They were all out from Adelaide. And we formed a band. They were in that band Parachute that you mentioned. It was a fun band, but it was a learning experience. And like you said, Ray, I'd never really lived away from home. I had to learn I had to grow up.
Look after yourself, yeah.
And that band, I kind of learnt what not to do in a band, And we were like pretty cool band. We played Dylan stuff, and we played Television and Patti Smith and all this stuff, and wrote a lot of songs. And in the inner city of Melbourne, we do quite well. Skinny jeans, and it wasn't
Patti
punk
Smith.
rock, but yeah.
Man, I bought that album in 1978, Easter.
Yeah.
Oh, I still play it.
Yeah, great album.
And I've got another one called Radio Ethiopia.
That's right.
That's
and
a
Horses,
trippy,
the first one, yeah.
Trippy albums,
yeah.
mate. Anyway,
so
Patti Smith, you just flicked me head back to London in 78.
So you imagine this. So we've got all these songs. Like, her lyrics are pretty kind of intellectual lyrics, and a couple of the guys who wrote stuff in Parachute, songs about existentialism and all this stuff, I mean. And we
Merc kind of lyrics, isn't it?
Well, I've never listened to them, mate.
Haven't you? I'll lend you the CD.
No, it's all right.
No. I'll give you.
No, I know Ray.
Do you?
Yeah, okay. Ray Thistle, and their bass player's a great man, Phil. No, I have seen them. I have seen them.
Great player.
He's a lot more of a jazz guy.
That's right. Yeah.
Ray, because I know a guy. He plays with Osnoy. Do you know Osnoy?
Yes, guitarist, American guitarist from New York.
Yeah, Osnoy and he do this thing in America.
Like a fusion
Ray.
jazz thing.
Yeah,
Funky pockets and all the
But
sorry, Dean.
So this is a bit of a funny story, I think, because someone asked me in an interview a while ago about just a moment, moments that you have in your career. And I was in that band, and we're playing all original material, and we're in the inner city of Melbourne, playing in these little clubs, doing really well. Then we, as you used to do, we'd have to support other bands. So we go out to the Village Green Hotel, where I was last weekend, just across the road from there playing, but which is out near Ferntree Gully, and
punishing.
And we were supporting. Now this is hysterical. We're supporting a band called Mother Goose.
Yeah, I remember Mother Goose. Yeah, I saw them a few times. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So here we are.
Baked beans.
Yeah, baked beans.
baked beans, yeah.
So here we are, and we're like the serious guys, and we get up there and we're playing our Velvet Underground, Dylan-inspired stuff, and the crowd just threw shit at us. Right? And then we get our gear off the stage, pull it off the stage, and Mother Goose, and there's a guy in a yellow ballerina's outfit with a big red beard, and they're singing about baked beans, and I thought to myself, this is going to be a rough road. The crowd's going wild over
them.
It's the entertainment bit.
That's right.
There's a place for everything, isn't
This
it?
is going to be tough. But I want to come back to Sydney, and Rob Hirst said, we're going to, how would you like to play Midnight Oil? We get $200 a week.
How long had they been together?
They just had head injuries come out.
Yep. So they'd put a few albums out, but that was their second album.
That was their second album, yeah. And they were getting, popular. And we that band, Eric Gradman's band, we used to play with them when they come down. And
had they lost their bass player?
No, well, they were
and
going.
Who was playing bass for them then?
His name was Bear.
That's it. Yeah.
The Bear, and
That was the Bear.
Well, the Bear was more sort of. I don't really know him, Andrew, but Rob. They used to complain about the Bear because the Bear was really into Genesis and Yes, and wanted them to go that way, and they were much more into punk rock at the time.
Oh, were they? Yeah, because they're really weird now.
Yeah. And
sorry.
And he said, how would you like to play in the Oils? And we get $200 a week. So I'm like, a beauty. So I really want to come back to Sydney. So I did what I've done a bit in my life has just been completely spontaneous and jumped the gun completely. And
by yourself.
Arrived in Sydney. I left this band, Eric Gradman's band, and there's a little side story to that. He's a graphic artist, and he did...
Eric Gradman.
He did the cover for the Matt Finish album. The yellow cover for the Matt Finish record?
Sitting on the seat. Yeah.
So Eric actually did that.
Wow.
And he said, when he gave me the artwork, he said, I always wanted to get back at you for leaving my band. But so I get to Sydney, and Rob's like, we haven't
sacked the other dudes.
No, so he said the best thing you could do, try and get a gig do something for a month or a couple of months. And Iva Davies actually was a friend. Because I used to love going to see them, Flowers, in the early days down in Melbourne when they come down. He became a friend, and he said there's this band called Matt Finish, and they need a bass player for 4 weeks. Their bass player had hepatitis. And
from what?
Had they released that album, the black one yet?
No, they hadn't released anything. Yep. They were like a bit of a funk band. They were sort of...
Yeah, because it's the guitar style.
Were they playing all of his music, Matt Moffitt's music then, or were they playing some covers? And
no covers. And they a lot of the songs. Well, it was. I mean, I've had some great things happen. That was a great thing too. Joining up with him and something weird. Like we had to go away for 4 weeks. We had this tour. We had a 2 week residency at a place called the Jet Club in Coolangatta. Mate, 1980. And
Coolangatta.
It's like
Coolangatta, 1980. What a place to be.
So what they used to do, like we're playing all original songs. And
so is that all the stuff that ended up on the first album?
A lot of it. No, hardly any of it ended up on
really?
the first. Yeah.
What, he wrote a whole...
Oh, there was a whole lot of other stuff, and we... See,
is any of that being recorded?
Oh, yeah, I've got some recordings of... we did some recordings
really
of
early stuff?
Yeah. Some of it...
Jeez, I'd love to hear
some
that.
Some of it changed into other... Yeah, sure. Some of it changed into other songs later on. But,
like were rewritten...
But something strange happened where I'd come from a different background to him. I'd come out of the Melbourne... It was not punk rock, but it was like playing in a different way. Well, he had this sort of jazzy sort of funk thing going.
Yeah.
And we just asked two styles, and we just hit it off. He and I just, boom, and we started to jam quite a bit, and then...
So you get that feeling jamming, and you're starting to go, wow, this is sounding all right,
yeah, so
and we're in
sync. It was different. I think there were bands like XTC and The Police who were like role models for us. We loved them at the time. and we just started writing songs really fast on the road. In 4 weeks, we kind of just gelled. There was a guitarist there who didn't gel so much, but the three of us, the drummer and Matt and I, really gelled on this. We just discovered this sound, and I remember him saying to me, "You've put me in a really bad place because we're going to go back to Sydney and my bass player goes out with my sister.
Yeah. Oh, no.
And I want you to stay in the band."
No.
So what happened was we got Jeff, who was the bass player, to join back on guitar because he was a good guitarist as well. So Jeff ended up back in the band. But those 4 weeks, I can say this on this podcast, I suppose.
You can say anything on
when we're in the Jet Club, it was so depressing, right? I mean, we get up there and you know the agents, you can just see, you know, Frank Stavala, you know, Frank.
Yep.
I like Frank. But Frank's gone, mate. You guys, you go up to Coolangatta. We'll get you a accommodation on the beach. It'd just be unreal, you know. We get up there, we're in this shithole. I mean, it was
Hotel, motel.
It was disgusting, and it was the worst. It was treacherous even to go on the sand of the beach there. It was like you couldn't swim there. It was just one of those horrible, and it was bleak. And then we go to the Jet Club, and the Jet Club, they had these tour buses, and suddenly the club would fill up with people, then be empty, and then fill up. And so we just thought, how are we going to survive this? So we started going out into the paddocks and getting mushrooms. and we'd make this soup, and we'd drink this soup, and we'd go down to the Jet Club and play. And I remember watching John Pryor, the drummer, drink half a bottle of Drambuie between sets. And we just get up.
Affect him.
And we get up and we just play, and we I don't know what we did, but I've heard recordings of some of those, and we were playing okay, but we'd experiment, and songs grew out of that, and we became very close. Then I got back to Sydney. I just fell in love with him. I just thought he was an extreme talent, and there was something really magic about that band. There was a lot of space in the music, and I got back, and Rob. I went to see Rob, and I said, I mean, they hadn't even. Yeah. I mean, I might not have even got that gig. I mean, there've been 3 opportunities to play with Midnight Oil in my life, and
you've knocked them all back. That
and
just hasn't happened.
And he and Jim Mogine, they said to me just recently, actually, we've been doing some recording with them, and Jim's like, yeah.
How many times?
Probably a good thing that you weren't. No, it was probably really. I think we liked you too much to get you in the band. We wouldn't wish it on anybody. And you know, I mean, in retrospect, it's probably a good thing because you know, Rob and I were very close friends, and things might have got in the way of that. But
so what happened to Matt Moffitt? I know he passed away.
So yeah,
was that drug related?
So well, he
because I want to bring this in now. I've heard. On that Australian story, I heard Rob Hirst say he never went anywhere there. But if you were playing in the 60s, 70s or 80s in the music scene in Australia, there was heroin, there was alcohol, there was everything.
Well, that's... our circle of friends in 1980, 81, they were all doing heroin. And so we fell into that. And we weren't...
Why was it heroin? There was just... I know there was a lot around.
There was a lot. I know. Here's another funny aside.
Yeah, yes.
Funny aside. Years later, we did a tour in the Divinyls with Aerosmith in America.
My favourite band.
Really?
Yeah.
So they asked for us to do it, and that's a whole. I can tell you that a bit later. The story, but I'm sitting with Joe Perry. You know, the second coolest man in music, and we were talking, and he says he's a scuba diver. And I used to go scuba diving, and I said, I was telling him my parents lived up on the Barrier Reef then, up in Early Beach, and I said, it's good. He says, yeah, I've never been to Australia. He said, you get good coke in Australia? I said, not really. It's too far away. We're very close to Southeast Asia. We got a lot of heroin. He looked at me with no irony and went, I got to get myself down there.
Magic. Second most famous band in rock.
But Matt,
because I want to tell you this story quickly. My father died when I was 16. I started to play up a lot. When I was about 17 and a half, my mum said, you're out. So I went down to Mascot where I was playing rugby league then. And a couple of the older fellas, 6 or 7 years older than me, let me sleep on their lounge. They lived in Hardy Street in Mascot, and they were still involved with the club. I'd only heard I'd heard Short Note on the radio, but they had that album, and the first time I heard them play the whole album, it changed. What you said, his voice and the riffs that he played just synced in with the music that I like to hear. And I just never got over it. And they also put me onto Steely Dan. I'd only heard a couple of Steely Dan songs on the radio, and they had all those Steely Dan albums. Wow. Matt Finish and Steely Dan really opened my eyes up to this different style of music that I'd never listened to because I was into really heavy and Zeppelin and Deep Purple and Uriah Heep and all that. Then this came along.
Did you ever see the band live?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so we were a lot more like on than the record.
Oh, absolutely. Sort of great
energetic,
gigs. Yeah.
Energetic in the record. Yeah.
But did he die of a heroin overdose?
No. So Matt, back then, this is 1980, 81, nowadays, he would be diagnosed with a mental illness.
Okay.
He would, he was, so my wife calls musicians crazy creatives. Like most great bands, or all great bands, I know, it has to have a bit of madness.
And they walk on that edge of creativity and madness, don't they? They're right on that edge.
I mean, Dave, he won't mind me saying this, but Dave's
out there.
He's out there, I mean, Dave's very. If you met him out in a pub or something, like he's great. He's Mr. Social. He's terrific. When you work with him, he can be, pretty out there. He's an amazing songwriter, so talented.
Yeah.
You just see this thing come to life when he brings a song in. But everyone I've worked with has had a hint of that, and it seems to be in every band. And Matt had.
But isn't that's almost the creative side, that insane mental thought process that makes those people do that stuff, that they're on that edge all the time, aren't they?
And some people have it more than others, and Matt. So Matt was pretty, when I first met him, when we went away for that 4 weeks, he was like out there guy, and his lyrics came from somewhere else, and but the drugs was like pouring petrol on a fire. So we were all taking acid and doing all sorts of drugs, heroin, but the heroin wasn't. It wasn't so much a problem. It became a problem for me later on, but he just became. I don't know how to. I always got along great with Matt. I loved him, and
he was a really good-looking, handsome, great singer. Could play guitar.
Yeah, I always got along very well.
What happened? What was
like
that?
Depression or?
So we started.
Anxiety?
So that band was such an intense experience. You talk about nowadays, it sounds a little corny to say, but you go on stage and it was like life or death. You had to be 100% commitment. It was like.
Did that come from Matt?
Oh, we're all pretty much like that.
You just wanted to get it right. Really.
Yeah, but it was the way you played. You couldn't sit back.
Bloods down the blind side. Yeah.
And a lot of bands were like that. Yep. Can I do side stories?
Yeah, sure.
So Jim Mogine in the Oils is one of, I don't know if you've ever met him, but he's one of the nicest blokes you'll ever meet.
Pretty good guitarist.
And composer, arranger.
Him and Rotsy together. Oh, that's ridiculous shit.
So
very strange.
So he's so well respected. He's quietly spoken. He's got a book out, just written a book. And he's a beautiful guy, Jim. Really, really beautiful guy. He's produced Neil Finn. And he's so well respected. I was talking to Giffo, the bass player who joined after Bear one night, and this is a couple of years ago, and we were talking about what it was like to be in our respective bands, and I said, gee, being the Oils, those band meetings that the Oils used to have were notorious with their manager, Gary Morris and Garrett and Rob, and they'd all fire up and there'd be lots of screaming and carrying on. And I said, they must have been, full on. And Giffo said to me, you want to know the worst night of my life? I said, what's that? And he said, he'd joined the Oils. He'd been in the Oils for a year. And he said, I'm in this big band, and I'm like, I'm on stage, and came off stage in Adelaide, and we're sitting in the dressing room, and Jim Mogine said to him, not good enough, Giff. It's like Eric Groth. Eric Groth told me the same thing. I saw it a couple of weeks ago, and I said, tell me a Jack Gibson story. And he said, when he was first in first grade, he got very close to Jack, but at the beginning he said he used to call him Young Growth, and his son was sick. He was a baby, and Jack knew there was something going on and said to Eric, "Got anything going on at home?" And Eric's like, "No, I'm fine." He said, "You sure you're okay?" He said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And they played on the weekend and they lost 14-16, and he had a bit of a shocker of a game. And Jack said to him after the game, "So, you know the name of the reserve grade coach?" Eric goes, "No." He says, "Well, you better find out." And he dropped him for 3 weeks.
Wow.
So it's a bit like that, the Giffo. And but Matt was very, very different animal to that, and it was intense to be in that band. There was physical kind of violence in the band. We used to fight.
What, punch on?
Oh yeah.
Oh really?
Punch. We did it. We punched on. Well, I was Henry Kissinger. I was trying to get people apart. But at Selena's. Yeah.
Maybe that was the night I saw you there.
Oh, it was terrible. It was a great gig, and everyone was wound up, and there was kind of this stuff going on between Jeff, who was going out with Matt's sister, and Matt. And after the gig, they were fighting in the dressing room, and the crowd. We had this huge crowd there, and
we're all going more.
Yeah. Right. And our manager, tour manager, grabbed everyone. He was a big guy. Grabbed everyone in a kind of a headlock and said, "You idiots!
Stage.
You idiots! Listen!"
Wow.
We went, went out, played a couple more songs, and then when we were leaving Selena's, we had a hire car, and our guitarist refused to get in the car with Matt, and we were driving out the front, and all the people who'd been in the gig were out in the street.
Now, this is the old Selena's where you could drive around the front.
No. We were out on Coogee Bay Road.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
And we pulled up at the lights, and the guitarist was standing at the lights with Matt's sister, and I said, "Do you guys want to?" He said, "I'm not getting in the car with him." And Matt's out of the car.
Oh, they're punching.
Bang! And they're
on the corner.
Like all these people had been in the gig.
Coogee Bay Road.
Yeah.
That's what music will do to you, but it gets everyone really up there, doesn't it?
So let's get to the crunch.
Well, I'll just say one other thing. There's songs on that album. There's 3 songs on that album that come from a book called Dispatches. And Dispatches is a book about Vietnam. And the movie Apocalypse Now is a combination between an old story, Heart of Darkness, and Dispatches. And we became fascinated with Vietnam. I had a family friend who fought in Vietnam, and I was always fascinated by it because of the music and the drugs, and it was all psychodrama, That's what Matt Finish became like, a psychodrama. We had the road crew carrying shotgun in the truck. We had, they were all on speed, and it was all really tense and
like paranoia.
And every gig was and it was just a live or die sort of thing. And if you didn't put 100% in, you'd be called out on it. And there's a lot of tension. And
sure.
And Matt also was travelling with his family. Wherever we went, there was 10 people, cousins and brothers. And
does that become not enjoyable?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're lovely people, but it's hey, what's going on here? But we had a punch up at the, where was it? The Mooloolaba pub, Mooloolaba Hotel. And and I remember we got back to Sydney. It was so intense, and we'd put that album. We got a gold album for that album, and
Great
then
album.
we put out the EP, Fade Away,
Great EP.
which was a great EP, and really, I mean, we should have just taken a break, but we've just had enough.
Did you ever punch up at the Playroom at Coolangatta?
We did.
Yeah. How did that go?
We did. No, that's
No,
great.
'cause I heard about that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Of course, I was with Jeff, sitting in one room with Jeff,
Yeah.
and Matt and John Pryor, our drummer, are like screaming at each other down the sort of few little rooms there. They were down in another room.
Love to play.
And when people say the wrong thing at the wrong time, Jeff goes, "Listen to them. They really love each other. They never lay a hand on it. As soon as he said it, there's bang, smash." So
Is this before or after you played?
after the gig.
After you played.
And
Jeez.
and then he and I, John Pryor and I, walked up and down the beach on the Gold Coast until about 6 a.m, and we just went, "Oh, fuck this, we've had enough."
Do you think Matt was depressed and...
I don't know if he's depressed. I think he was bipolar.
Yeah, right.
And had psychotic episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw him. Oh, mate, I saw him.
See, that's that borderline genius thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, most singer guitarists are like that. I know a few.
Yeah, we
I
do.
know.
Yeah.
But it got worse, and I left, and they made another record, and they got another bass player.
Timing Money, something like that. That was one of the songs on it.
Yeah.
Did Harry Brus play with them?
No. Thunder Thumbs.
Thunder comes.
Watch me do that.
He's a good
Watch
man.
me do that the whole time.
I know he does. He loves it. But
Did you leave of your own accord, or did Divinyls?
no, I left on my own accord, and I went away and worked on my parents' boat. They had a boat up in the islands for 4 months. I just worked on the boat. I was so...
Was that a tourist thing, or
Yeah.
So they had a tour boat up there,
Yeah.
off
Sailing
Allen
boat.
Beach.
Yeah.
Wow.
Shute Harbour, yeah.
Wow. And you went and took tours in that for 4 months.
I just went and worked as a deckhand.
Boat hand, yeah.
And
Deckhand,
didn't
yeah.
wear shoes for 4 months.
That's pretty cool.
And I was so burnt out by the drugs and the psycho. I mean, in that book, in Dispatches, they talk about the American soldiers shooting themselves in the foot so they could go home. And I was in a hotel in Ballina, and I thought, if I smash my hand now, I could go home.